A few of you have been asking, how do I paint over SketchUp models? And to give you a specific answer for this would be missing the point a little. Because the way that I paint over SketchUp models is essentially the same way that I paint over everything. And this gets at a really interesting aspect of digital painting. But before we go any further, I need you to stop what you're doing. Now listen carefully. What I'm about to show you does not replace the need for drawing. It only works because I've spent so many years drawing and know how to draw from my imagination. Part of what I'm going to show you does involve tracing. But this does not mean that all I ever do is trace. This is just one of the tools that a digital artist can use to make the image that they have in their imagination. I can't say this enough. This sketch right here, the one on the right, this is what I'm going for. And essentially, this is already done. This, combined with the imaginary image I had in my head when I drew this, is the illustration. All the rest is just polish. So the fact that I'm going to now use some photographic images, even a SketchUp model as you saw in the last video, these are all just tools to help me create the image that I dreamt up, the one on the right. So if all you did was cobble photos together and do some painting on top, that's not the same as trying to realize an image that you've already dreamt up. These are just tools, just like markers or oil paints. All they do is get you to a finished illustration that is a refined version of your sketch. So with that sketch in mind, now I'm just going to use all of the normal Photoshop tricks that I've done in all the previous videos. For instance, I could do things like put a glaze layer on top. So maybe if I wanted a blue cast, I would make a new layer, set it to multiply, and paint it over top. I can also cut out my characters from the thumbnail sketch and just slap them in there. It doesn't matter if all these elements are at sort of varying levels of finish, because I'm going to be painting opaque on top of all of this. There's really not going to be much of these textured photographic elements sitting in the final image. I'm going to cover every inch with my own paint. All I'm doing here is establishing a great ground to paint on top of. So there's really not a lot of tricks to the way that I'm utilizing Photoshop and SketchUp together. It's just a way of piecing together an underpainting. So if I've masked out the sky here, I could either hand paint the sky with a variety of brushes, or I could start with a photo texture. And generally when it comes to clouds, I'll take 5 or 6 different photographs, piece them together, change the colors a bit, and then paint on top. So there's really not much left of any individual photo when the final illustration happens. So what you're seeing here is something that is unique to digital. If I were drawing this all on paper, I'd make a nice drawing and then put paint on top. That's it. But here, the drawing part can be any number of things, because ultimately it's all just pixels. So if I wanted to take a snapshot from a movie and then a picture from the street corner and then maybe a photo texture, I could put those all together and then paint on top and no one would ever know. Because ultimately what matters is the sketch. This is the drawing I'm making. And if it makes that process easier to throw down some photos and SketchUp models as an underdrawing, that's great. For some images, that wouldn't make any sense at all. But it's good to use the computer to its full potential. And Photoshop doesn't care what you lay down. Pixels are pixels. So hopefully this clears up how the digital workflow can be a bit different from a traditional one, and how you can use all sorts of media to come to your final hand-painted illustration.